Welcome everyone to Unfolding Consciousness book study number 53. I miss them and I miss you. So I hope to do alternating weeks between Sundays and our Unfolding Consciousness series and our Saturday Mental Magic series. So let's get right to it. The divine forces within humans. Yeah, the awakening of the latent faculties and powers of consciousness. We are in the middle of page 183 for those of you that are following along in the books, and our yellow post-it study notes for today are very exciting. Listen, the third eye, we always go here, right? The third eye, antediluvian, mythological, historical, mammalian. Now that's mammals, so mammalian. I hope I'm saying that right. The awakened third eye bestows panoramic vision. René Descartes, his intuition, the upper and lower polarities, we touched on this last time, the upper and lower polarities in the human body and the true meaning of chastity. All right? Involutionary and evolutionary cycles. Involutionary and evolutionary. The importance of the contrast between involutionary and evolutionary cycles of development is that both of these stages apply to the consciousness and development of humanity. So when we think of the term third eye, many of us will go here, the third eye. Several images come to mind. One is an association with animals like the iguana or the ancient tuataras of New Zealand. They actually still have a functional third eye. Look it up. And scientific evidence today supports the possibility that this organ, the organ was the first eye in nature. First one eye before two, particularly in vertebrates and possibly even in man in a rudimentary natural sense. Now this is because microscopic examination has revealed that it is formed of cells that have the distinct features of the rod-shaped light-sensitive cells that are found in the retina. All right, indicating its possible original function as an organ of actual sight. In higher vertebrates, neurons are usually located in the pineal gland. All right, the pineal gland is back there in the middle. Then there are fertile sources of information about human evolution and the third eye from universal myths and traditions all over the world, from the East and from the West. Now, Eddie says here, we may recall stories told in childhood about the Cyclops. We remember the Cyclops, the giant Cyclops, huh? One eye of Greek myth, fought by Ulysses, or the mystical eye of Shiva, representing intuition or direct cosmic vision. These mythical traditions also feature early races, now don't freak out about the word race, I'll explain that in a moment, of one-eyed giants and titans said to have lived long ages ago. The timeless wisdom of this ancient lore provides vital knowledge about how mankind came into existence on Earth, and by blending the interpretations of science with ancient sources in the light of occultism, we gain a new perspective and fuller appreciation about the dim past of humanity and the third eye. Eddie says here, what the timeless wisdom has taught us is that in the gray, distant past, man did not inhabit this present coat of skin, this type of body, but expressed ourselves through bodies of much more ethereal substances. Not being immersed in physicality at that time, our spiritual and psychic faculties were operative in proportion to the dormancy of our physical faculties. Then, over the long course of involution, the progressive burial of spirit in matter, our spiritual and psychic nature diminished in proportion to the ascendancy of our physical nature. All right, I know. This lowest point of the involutionary cycle, the deepest immersion in matter, occurred during the latter stages of the fourth Atlantean root race. Now, don't freak out here. I have to explain this all the time in the Theosophical teachings. The term race does not mean ethnicity. It means a wave of humanity, a wave of existence. It does not mean ethnicity here, all right? So from then onwards began the slow evolutionary cycle, which science today studies exclusively only at the physical level of the release of spirit from bondage in matter. Then, as we are told, after eons, man will arrive at the same point of his original spirituality, but only this time in full self-consciousness, as opposed to the instinctive or reflexive state of the same condition earlier. man will cycle backwards on his earlier state of spirituality by cycling forwards in his evolutionary development. So let's say that again, okay? Man will cycle backwards. Am I doing that the same way? Man will cycle backwards to his earlier state of spirituality by cycling forward in his evolutionary development. And he's touching here on the chains and rounds that you will hear about in the Theosophical teachings. This is big. There's so much there. We will cover this at some time. It's deep. Chains and rounds. So moving on. The third eye. We always do this. The point of all of this is that during those early prehistorical epochs, man had one eye, the eye of spiritual sight. Then he developed two eyes, the third eye, the Devā Eye, gradually atrophied and became now what is known as the pineal gland. All right, this was originally an actual eye. However, this organ can, by specific techniques, be awakened to confer the spiritual insight that was once its role. Now, as HPB declares, she says, the pineal gland is the very key to the highest and divinest consciousness in man, his omniscient, spiritual, and all-embracing mind. And moreover, this seemingly useless appendage to modern Western medicine is the pendulum, which once the clockwork of the inner man is wound up, carries the spiritual vision of the higher self to the highest planes of perception, where the horizons open before it and it becomes almost infinite. Now, Eddie says we're going to return to this theme shortly. We will cover this. He will cover this, and we will cover this. Note, however, that it is only for illustrative purposes and often out of ignorance that we say the third eye right here between the eyes. This is not the case. I know. A lot of us will be like, what? It's not between the physical eyes here. All right. The third eye, he says here, was at the back of the head. The Devā Eye exists no more for the majority of mankind. The third eye is dead and acts no longer, but it has left behind a witness to its existence, and this witness is the pineal gland. So let's take a look at this picture, which is really ahead of its time, 1664, from the Treaty of Man, René Descartes, taking a look at the function of the pineal gland. And right here, again, way before we understood the pineal gland and the polarity of spirituality and sexuality. All right, even nowadays, the spiritual function of the pineal gland is not entirely unused. We recognize this activity whenever we have a flash of spontaneous understanding about a situation, ranging from a hunch to clairvoyant abilities and intuitive awareness. How well it functions in each of us depends on how much we foster our spiritual capacities. A good case in point is none other than Descartes, who suggested more wisely than he possibly knew that the pineal gland, which he correctly located at the back of the head, let's look at that figure again, might be the abode of the spirit of man. Unscientific as this may appear in our day of exact learning, Descartes was far nearer to the occult truth than most, for the pineal gland here as shown is far more connected with soul and spirit than with the physiological senses of man. At this juncture, we need to emphasize the polarity, we touched on this last time, the polarity of spirituality and sexuality. As stated earlier, medical science has discovered that sexuality at the lower pole is linked to the secretion of the hormone melatonin at the upper pole, which regulates certain reproductive hormones. Okay? However, the connection is not merely physiological, but deeply psycho-spiritual. Occultly, the pineal gland at the upper pole of the human body corresponds with the uterus and its counterpart in the male, you know what I'm talking about, at the lower pole, and the collection of connecting nerve fibers of the pineal gland correspond with the fallopian tubes of the uterus. So man is androgen as far as his head is concerned. It's true. It's difficult for some to understand that, but it's true. It's very natural and normal. We are androgen as far as our head is concerned. Practical occultism, founded on the esoteric philosophy, recognizes the direct and intimate connection prevailing between the pineal gland and our genitalia, located at the opposite end of the spine. These two are creative poles, and when one is positive and active, the other is negative. and passive in proportion. So, when the north pole of the spine, the pineal gland, is active, it creates, it gives birth to ideas and thoughts and intuition. And when the south pole, the generative organ, is active, children of flesh are procreated. In the ordinary individual, the genitalia and the pineal gland are both active by turns. And therefore, we are a mixture of lust and love, of passion and compassion. So beautiful. This is the essential meaning behind the earlier quotation that I think, Jonathan, you commented on by Brunton at the head of this section, that the animal and the man oppose each other at opposite ends of the human spine. I love this. There's nothing more important for us to do than learn these. We see evidence of this strong polarity in highly creative people, especially musicians and painters and performing artists, or powerful and influential public figures like money and power-crazed politicians and billionaires whose personal lives are invariably satiated with diverse sexual encounters. But Eddie says here, listen, in no sense whatsoever is there the least implication in this, or for any of the Holy Scriptures or occult doctrines, that sexuality per se is debasing or adverse to spirituality. That is powerful. I'm going to say that again. But in no sense whatsoever is there the least implication that this, or for that in any other matter or Holy Scripture or occult doctrine, that sexuality per se is debasing or adverse to spirituality. This entirely mistaken moralistic idea invariably prevails in religious or spiritual societies when the living message gets mired in dogma and ritual. But what is most emphatically harmful to the evolution of spirituality are the sensual, carnal, and lusting appetites of the unbridled lower nature of man, our animal or brute nature, so-called, but not his natural love-driven desire for procreation. So terms like chastity or the Eastern word brahmacharya are much misunderstood, Eddie says, having all to do with pure motives and cleanliness of thought rather than artificially enforced celibacy with the mind completely running amok with sexual fantasies. Is this also not what the Christ meant when he warned not to look upon a woman with lust, because that was tantamount to committing adultery in one's heart? Kind of makes sense there. All this has much to do with the awakening of the occult potentialities within the pineal gland. Next time, we move on to what is the occult function of the pituitary gland and its relation to the pineal gland. This is book study number 53 in Unfolding Consciousness, exploring the living universe and the intelligent powers in nature and humans. That's what we're doing here. Intelligent powers, all of this inner faculties. We're looking at these. They're dormant in most of us. What are they for? They're used to help humanity to create here on earth out of selflessness and for the betterment of the whole. So Eddie Billamoria's Unfolding Consciousness, exploring the living universe and the intelligent powers in nature and humans is our subject. If you wish to get a copy of these texts, you can get a hardback edition if you wish. From the link I provided down below, you get 25% off by typing in this code right here. I want my copy, ! Gets you 25% off through the Shepherd Waldman website. You can also find it on UK's Amazon. I'm having a hard time finding if it's on the American Amazon yet. It disappeared for a minute, but it's on the UK Amazon link, and I've included that down below as well. It's $24.99 in most local currencies. We will get that taken care of, so that hopefully will not be an issue for much longer. So remember, I want my copy, ! Gets you 25% off the 4-volume hardback set. This is a mammoth undertaking, 4 volumes, 1,300 pages. It's massive. So I'm so grateful to be here with you doing these studies. I learn so much when I do them. I can't walk away from them. I must do them. There is nothing more important to do. So if these teachings help you in any way, please like, share, subscribe, because it helps the channel. It's really tiny. It's really little, but that's okay because it's an intimate crowd, and that means I get more time with you. So that's okay. Whoever's meant to be here will be here. That's fine. If you have any questions, let me know. I try to respond to all of the comments. I love you. I appreciate you. And I'm grateful for you. So very grateful for you. Thank you for being here.